The desert didn't care about justice. It stretched out under a cruel sun, all red rock and bones, a place where old hatreds ran deeper than the canyons. This was 1876, where the law was whatever a man with a gun said it was. And inside a dusty adobe room, Eleanor Whitman was about to pay for sins that weren't hers. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted the heavy white veil. It felt less like a wedding accessory and more like a shroud. At 19, she should have been dreaming of a future. Instead, she was walking to her own execution. Her father was Colonel James Whitman, a man the territory called a hero, a man who came home from his campaigns against the Apache with his uniform stained and his breath thick with whiskey, boasting of how he'd cleared the land of savages. Eleanor knew what that meant. She'd heard the soldiers talk. She'd seen the stolen treasures. She was only 7 when she realized her father wasn't a hero. He was a monster. A soft voice pulled her from the memory. "Miss Eleanor, it is time." Through the walls she could hear the crowd. They hadn't come to celebrate. They'd come for the spectacle. The daughter of the great Colonel Whitman marrying an Apache warrior. It was a scandal, a perversion, but it was also the price of peace. The governor himself had arranged it, a blood price for her father's crimes. Eleanor was the last of the Whitman line, her life given to the son of the man her father had butchered, and she hadn't protested. How could she? The weight of her father's sins was a mountain on her shoulders. The man she was about to marry was called Black Eagle. She'd seen him only once, at the meeting where their fate was sealed. He was tall and lean, his face a mask of stone, but his eyes burned with a fire that could turn a person to ash. He was the sole survivor of the Coyote Creek Massacre, her father's most famous victory. Black Eagle had been hunting. He returned to find his entire world gone. His mother, his father, his little sister, his infant brother, all gone. He was 17 then. Now 10 years later, he was being forced to marry the daughter of their killer. The chapel was a rough, ugly thing. The crowd parted as she walked, their whispers like snakes in the dust. "Poor girl," one said. "Better than she deserves," said another. Inside, the air was thick with hate. Black Eagle stood at the altar. He wore a strange mix of his people's clothes and the white man's suit the governor insisted on. Eagle feathers in his hair, a leather vest over a starched white shirt. He looked like a caged predator. The missionary stammered through the vows. When it was Black Eagle's turn, his voice was a low growl, each word dragged from a place of pure agony. "I take her." Eleanor lifted her veil. "I take him," she whispered. There was no kiss. The second the words were out, Black Eagle turned and strode from the chapel. He mounted his horse without a word. Eleanor struggled onto hers, the heavy dress tangling around her legs. They rode out of town, leaving the whispers and the hate behind, heading for a new kind of hate. The sun bled across the horizon, painting the desert in shades of blood and gold. As the Apache camp came into view, fires glowing like fallen stars, she saw the faces, staring, judging. The hostility was a physical thing, pressing in on her from all sides. He led her to a wickiup set apart from the others and disappeared inside. Eleanor sat on her horse, frozen, until a memory of her maid's voice spurred her on. "Be strong, child." Inside, a small fire danced. Black Eagle sat with his back to her. The silence stretched, tight and thin, ready to snap. Finally, she couldn't bear it. Her voice was a cracked whisper. "Do you still hate me?" The words hung in the air like smoke, and in that moment, she knew. His answer would decide if she lived or died. His whole body went rigid. For a long, terrifying moment, he didn't move. The firelight threw his shadow across the wall, making him look like a giant, a specter of vengeance. When he finally turned, his face was a mask of pure rage. His eyes blazed. "Hate you," he repeated, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "You are the daughter of the man who slaughtered my family? And you ask if I hate you?" Eleanor scrambled back, her wedding dress catching on the doorframe. This wasn't just anger. This was a soul-deep agony she had only ever imagined. "I know what your father did," he snarled, getting to his feet. He towered over her. "I know because I found them. My mother, shielding my infant brother with her body. My sister." His voice broke. "She was 6 years old, the same age as you. You were playing with dolls in a fine house while my family's blood soaked into the ground. The weight of it crushed her. Eleanor sank to her knees. I dream of them, she whispered, the confession torn from her. The children. I hear them crying. Your dreams mean nothing, he roared, spinning back to face her. Your guilt can't bring them back to life. Outside, she could hear the camp stirring, drawn by his rage. They were waiting, hoping he would finally take the revenge he was owed. Then why? She choked out. Why did you agree to this marriage if not to kill me? He let out a bitter, joyless laugh. Kill you? That would be a mercy. No, I agreed because the elders seek a foolish peace. They think this union will stop the bloodshed. He stalked toward the door. But I will never accept you as my wife. She grabbed his arm. He froze, looking down at her hand like it was a snake. Then we are both prisoners, she said, her voice shaking, condemned for sins that aren't ours. He ripped his arm away. Do not compare your suffering to mine. You still have a life. He was gone, leaving her alone with the dying fire. She heard his voice outside, sharp and final, dispersing the curious crowd. Eleanor stayed on the floor, her beautiful wedding dress now a ruined, filthy rag. She was an outcast in the white world, and an emblem of hate in this one. She belonged nowhere. Hours later, she finally moved. She lit a candle and looked around. The wickiup was bare. Buffalo hides for beds, a few clay pots, weapons hanging from the frame. On a small platform sat a deerskin bundle. Driven by a need to understand, she reached for it. Inside were a pair of child's moccasins, beautifully beaded. Too small for him. They must have been his sister's. Don't touch that. Black Eagle stood in the doorway, his face a mask in the candlelight. I'm sorry, she said, carefully putting the bundle back. They're beautiful. My mother made them, he said, his voice flat. For my sister. She never got to wear them. The shared grief hung between them, a fragile, unspoken thing. The elders say I must provide for you, he said finally. There is food, water. You will sleep there. He pointed to the hides on the opposite side of the fire. And tomorrow, she asked, tomorrow you learn what it means to be Apache. You will work as our women work. You will earn your place, or you will starve. Do not expect my protection beyond what honor demands. She nodded. I expect nothing. He lay down, turning his back to her. As she settled onto her own bedding, still in the ruined dress, she spoke into the darkness. I won't ask for your forgiveness. I know it's impossible, but I want you to know. I hated him too. My father. I hated carrying his blood, his name. She took a ragged breath. I came here because I hoped. You hoped for what? His voice was hard, but the rage was gone. Redemption, she whispered. Or punishment. I'm no longer sure there's a difference. He didn't answer. They lay there in the dark, two enemies bound by a piece of paper, each drowning in their own sea of grief. And Eleanor knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that her punishment was just beginning. The next morning, Eleanor woke to an empty wickiup. The Apache camp was already a hive of activity, but the moment she stepped outside, a wall of silence went up. Every eye was on her. An old woman with a face like a dried riverbed marched up to her. She spat a torrent of angry Apache words, gesturing at Eleanor's torn wedding dress with contempt. This was Nahasan, the Earth Woman, and she was Eleanor's new teacher. Nahasan dragged her to a dwelling where other women were working. They stared with open hostility as the old woman thrust a bundle of deerskin clothes at her. Eleanor changed behind a held blanket, feeling their eyes on her pale skin. When she emerged, one of the younger women laughed. Look, she said in broken English, the white woman plays dress-up. Her real trial began then. The chores were a special kind of hell designed to break her. Water had to be hauled from a stream nearly half a mile away. The clay jars were brutally heavy. On her first trip, she slipped, shattering a jar. Precious water soaked into the dust. The women watched, their faces grim. Here, water is life, one of them said. Every drop you waste is a child's thirst. By the end of the morning, her hands were a mess of blisters and cuts. Her shoulders screamed in protest. Making a fire was even more humiliating. While the other women could coax a flame to life in seconds, Eleanor's clumsy efforts only produced smoke and the women's mocking laughter. She finally managed a tiny, pathetic flame near noon, looking up through a haze of sweat to see Black Eagle watching from across the camp. He gave no sign of approval. He just turned and walked away. The work never stopped, grinding corn until her arms felt like lead, scraping hides that reeked of death, the women giving her the oldest, most rotten pieces. By afternoon, she was a wreck of sunburn, blisters, and exhaustion. That's when the sandstorm hit. It came on fast, a roaring wall of yellow-brown dust that swallowed the sky. The Apache moved with practiced speed, securing their homes, protecting their animals. But Eleanor just stood there, frozen, until she saw them. Black Eagle's horses, still hobbled in the open pasture, directly in the path of the storm. Something inside her snapped. She forgot her pain, her fear, her exhaustion. She just ran. The sand hit her like 1,000 tiny needles, blinding her. She found the first horse by touch, her raw fingers fumbling with the leather hobbles as the terrified animal bucked and pulled. She got it free and slapped its rump, sending it galloping toward the shelter of the cliffs. The second horse was panicking, rearing wildly. Eleanor grabbed its mane, throwing her weight against it, whispering the soothing words her father had taught her in the one good memory she had of him. The hobbles came loose, but as the horse bolted, the full force of the wind hit her, sending her tumbling through the rocks and sand. She was lost in a brown, howling void. Disoriented, she started to crawl, but had no idea which way to go. Suddenly, strong hands grabbed her, hauling her into the shelter of a wickiup. It was Black Eagle. "Foolish woman," he said, but the usual venom was gone from his voice. "The horses know how to survive. You do not." He gave her a water skin. She rinsed the grit from her mouth, coughing and spitting. "Your horses," she managed to gasp. "The hobbles." "I saw," he said simply. He stood at the entrance, watching the storm. "Why?" She didn't have an answer. "They were helpless," she said. "They could have broken their legs." He was quiet for a long time. "You could have been killed." "Yes," she agreed, the reality of it finally sinking in. "I suppose I am a foolish white woman." "Perhaps," he said. And then he added, almost too low to hear over the wind, "or perhaps not." When the storm passed, Eleanor stumbled outside. The camp was a mess, but the people were safe. Nahazan appeared at her side. "The horses are valuable," the old woman said, her voice flat. "You did a brave thing. Stupid, but brave." It was the first hint of respect anyone had shown her. That night, Black Eagle came to their wickiup and set down a small pot. "For your burns," he said curtly. "Nahazan sent it." Eleanor struggled to sit up. "Thank you." "Thank her, not me." He went to his own bedding. "The horses are well." "I'm glad," she whispered. "You are a fool," he said again, but this time it sounded different. "No one risks their life for animals." "You would have," she said, with a certainty that surprised her. "They are your horses. You would have done the same." He didn't answer. He just lay down and turned his back to her. But Eleanor knew, as she applied the soothing salve to her burned skin, that something had shifted. She had been tested by the desert, and for the first time, she hadn't broken. The riders came at dawn, just as the story always goes. 8 of them, rough men with cruel eyes, led by a man Eleanor recognized with a jolt of pure terror. Jack Thornton, one of her father's most brutal sergeants. "Well, well," Thornton drawled, his gaze landing on Eleanor. "If it ain't the colonel's little girl, gone native, your daddy would be spinning in his grave." Black Eagle stepped forward, flanked by his warriors. The air crackled with tension. "You are not welcome here," Black Eagle said, his voice deadly calm. "Leave." Thornton just laughed. "We heard the government's paying for Apache horses, and seeing as you got a white woman here, well, we ought to make sure she's being treated proper." That's when Eleanor saw it. 2 of Thornton's men were sneaking toward the horse herd. This wasn't a casual visit. It was a planned raid. She had to warn him. Thinking fast, she pretended to stumble, dropping the heavy water jar she was carrying. It shattered at Black Eagle's feet. As she knelt to pick up the pieces, she whispered in Apache, Two men. The horses. It's a trap. His eyes didn't flicker, but she saw his hand make a subtle signal. The warning was passed. "We'll take half your horses," Thornton was saying, his hand moving to his gun. "Call it even." "No," Black Eagle said. Before Thornton could react, Eleanor stood. "Mr. Thornton," she said, her voice ringing with a confidence she didn't feel. "I know who you are, and I know there are warrants for your arrest in 2 territories." Thornton's face darkened. "You threatening me, girl?" "I am stating facts," she said, stepping forward, "and I am here by my own free will, an arrangement witnessed by the governor. Any violence against this camp will be considered an act of war." It was a bluff, a desperate gamble. Just then, the 2 men at the herd made their move. The horses scattered, and from behind the rocks, more Apache warriors appeared. The trap had been sprung. The world exploded in gunfire and chaos. Eleanor hit the dirt, crawling for cover. She saw one of Thornton's men grab a small Apache boy, holding a knife to his throat. Without thinking, Eleanor grabbed a heavy grinding stone and hurled it with all her might. It hit the man's wrist, and the boy scrambled free. The outlaw turned on her, his face twisted in a snarl, raising his pistol. But the shot that rang out wasn't his. The man crumpled to the ground. Across the clearing, Eleanor saw Black Eagle, his rifle still smoking. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, a silent, stunning acknowledgement. The fight was short and brutal. Thornton and the rest of his men, realizing they were outmaneuvered, fled into the desert, screaming threats and curses. The raid was over, but the cost was high. Several warriors were wounded, and one woman was weeping over the body of her husband. Eleanor immediately went to work, using her limited knowledge of healing to tend the injured. The Apache women, who had shunned her just that morning, now worked alongside her. Nahazan came to her side. "You warned him," the old woman said. "You stood between the guns. Why?" "They would have slaughtered you," Eleanor said, tying off a bandage. "I've seen Thornton's kind of justice before." "Your father's justice," Nahazan stated. "Yes," Eleanor admitted, her voice thick with shame. Later, the camp council gathered. Eleanor expected to be cast out, but Black Eagle gestured for her to join the circle. "She warned us," he said, his voice cutting through the angry arguments. "She stood with us." "She is still white," an elder countered. "They came because of her." "They're right," Eleanor said, speaking in fluent Apache, shocking them all. "My presence brings danger. But Thornton wanted your horses. I was just the excuse. He will be back, whether I am here or not. But if I am here, my word to the governor might be the only thing that stands between you and the army." That night, in their wickiup, she tended to a grazing wound on Black Eagle's ribs. It was the first time she had touched him since their wedding night. "You fought for us today," he said quietly. "I fought against men like my father," she corrected. "I won't be that person. Not ever." "The child you saved," he said after a moment. "His name is Small Fox. He is my cousin's son." He looked at her, truly looked at her. "The camp is divided. Some still want you gone. Others are beginning to see what I saw today." "What did you see?" she asked. "I saw a woman who chose a side." A few days later, a sickness swept through the camp, a fever that burned hot and fast. Eleanor recognized it from her time volunteering at the Fort Hospital. "Don't let them drink cold water," she shouted, taking charge. "We need willow bark tea. We must separate the sick from the healthy." For a moment, they just stared at her, this white woman giving orders. Then Black Eagle's voice rang out. "Do what she says." For 3 days and 3 nights, Eleanor didn't sleep. She brewed remedies, cooled fevers, sat with the dying, and fought for every life. She worked until she finally collapsed from exhaustion. She woke to find Black Eagle carrying her back to their wickiup. He laid her down gently. "Be quiet," he said, his voice rough with emotion when she tried to protest. Nahazan was there when she truly woke again. "3 died," the old woman said. "Without you, it would have been many more. You fought for our lives as fiercely as any warrior. You wept for our dead as if they were your own." The old woman patted her shoulder. "The people see now. You carry his blood, but not his heart." Nahazan paused at the entrance. That old man you met in the desert sees far. He is Black Eagle's grandfather. The revelation stunned her. When Black Eagle returned, he looked at her with new eyes. My grandfather told me that hatred is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. I didn't listen. I wanted the poison. He met her gaze. And now I watch the woman who should be my enemy save my people. I wonder if I have been the fool, not you. I can't bring them back, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. No, he said, his voice thick with unshed grief. But perhaps you can help me finally bury them. The fragile peace was shattered by the thunder of hooves. This time it wasn't a gang of outlaws. It was the U.S. cavalry, at least 40 strong, led by Captain Samuel Morrison, another of her father's men. And riding with them, his face a mask of triumph, was Jack Thornton. Mrs. Whitman, Morrison called out, using her father's name like a slap. I am here to ensure your safety and return you to civilization. I am safe, Captain, Eleanor called back, stepping forward. Black Eagle moved to stand beside her. And I am here by choice. She's lying, Thornton snarled. She's turned traitor. We have reports of Apache hostilities, Morrison said, ignoring Thornton. Stolen cattle, murdered homesteaders. Then investigate, Black Eagle said. You will find nothing. Eleanor saw the trap. Morrison's men were tense, spoiling for a fight. The civilians with them were drunk on hate. Any search would turn violent. She had to de-escalate. Captain, she said, approaching him alone. Samuel, we both know this is a lie. You're a decent man. Don't let Thornton turn you into my father. His jaw tightened. The town wants blood, Eleanor. I have to give them something. Then take me, she said, a desperate plan forming in her mind. Tell them you're rescuing me. It will buy time. He agreed to a compromise. Guns and horses as a sign of peace. The Apache warriors protested, but Black Eagle silenced them. She speaks with wisdom, he declared. We will live to fight another day. The handover was humiliating. The soldiers jeered as the Apache gave up their old weapons, their worn-out horses. Then one of Thornton's drunken friends grabbed a young Apache woman. Her husband moved to protect her, and the camp exploded. In the chaos, the civilian backhanded the woman's 5-year-old son, sending the boy flying. Eleanor didn't think. She just moved, placing her body between the man and the child. The man's next blow caught her square in the jaw, sending her sprawling into the dust. The Apache warriors surged forward, but Black Eagle's voice, a roar of pure fury, stopped them cold. He strode to the civilian who had struck Eleanor. You struck my wife, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Then his fist connected, and the man dropped like a sack of grain. Morrison, his face pale, knew he'd lost control. Mount up, he barked at his men. We're leaving. He looked at Eleanor, who was now holding the crying child, blood trickling from her lip. This isn't over, he warned. I've bought you time, nothing more. That night, the camp was quiet. The child Eleanor had saved, Little Wolf, sat by her side, his small hand on her knee. His mother, Rising Dove, watched them with tears in her eyes. You took the blow meant for my son, she whispered. Any mother would have, Eleanor replied. You are not his mother, Rising Dove said softly, but you are one of us. Black Eagle came and sat beside her. The elders wish to honor you, he said. His grandfather sees far, stepped forward, and placed a necklace of turquoise beads around her neck. Your name among us shall be she who stands between, the old man said. For you stand between two worlds, between violence and peace, between the past and the future. The name settled over her like a warm blanket. She had found her place. Later in their wickiup, the silence between them was no longer a wall, but a shared space. I love you, she whispered, surprising herself. His arm came around her, pulling her close. And I love you, she who stands between. The peace lasted for 2 precious months. Eleanor slowly recovered from the fever that had struck her down after the fight. Black Eagle nursed her with a tenderness that spoke more than words, singing his mother's healing songs to call her spirit back from the edge. The camp, once so hostile, now treated her as one of their own. Then one morning, she felt a subtle change within her body, a secret joy, a terrifying hope. She was pregnant. Before she could share the news, Captain Morrison returned, his face grim. Thornton has raised a militia, he warned. 60 men. They're coming tonight. They don't care about laws anymore. The camp prepared for flight. We can run to the mountains, Black Eagle said, his eyes full of worry for her condition. No, Eleanor said, her voice firm. We don't run. We go to the reservation. Eleanor, the reservations are prisons. They are also under the protection of the law, she argued. There I can use my father's name. I can write letters. I can demand justice. It's a different kind of fight, but we can survive it. Our child can survive it. They began the long trek. They hadn't gone 5 miles before Thornton's militia caught up to them. The running battle was a nightmare of dust and gunfire. Eleanor rode with the women and children, her rifle in her hands. She saw Thornton break through the line of warriors, his eyes fixed on her. He was almost upon them when Rising Dove, the mother of the boy Eleanor had saved, rode between them. Her rifle spoke once. Jack Thornton's reign of terror was over. Life on the reservation was hard, just as they feared. But Eleanor fought with her own weapons. Words. She wrote letter after letter, shaming officials, demanding the food and medicine they were promised. And slowly, things began to change. Her son was born at sunrise, a healthy boy with his father's eyes. They named him Samuel in honor of the captain who had warned them. But his Apache name was Dawn Walker, for he was the beginning of a new day. Years passed. More children came, each a bridge between two worlds. The hatred between the town and the Apache began to fade, replaced by a grudging respect. Then a fragile friendship built on the foundation Eleanor and Black Eagle had laid. One evening, an old and graying Eleanor sat with her husband, watching their grandchildren play. They were a beautiful mix of two peoples, a living testament to the world they had built. "Do you regret it?" he asked, his hand finding hers. She thought of the comfortable life she could have had, and the rich, difficult, meaningful life she had chosen instead. "Not for a moment," she said. A young couple, a white teacher and an Apache warrior, approached them. "Tell us," the girl asked, "how do you stand between two worlds without being torn apart?" Eleanor smiled, leaning against her husband's shoulder. "You don't stand between," she said. "You build a new one. Together." If you enjoyed this story of courage and love against all odds, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more stories from the Wild West to life, so don't forget to like and subscribe.